Okay, so what's the response from different governments? What responses have we all had? Are they all positive, negative, or neutral?
No, there's different opinions around the world. What has happened is that within the context of Latin America, of course, the step taken by Uruguay has sparked um, not just Uruguay, but also the changes in the United States itself, who has now four or five states where recreative cannabis use is permitted by law. Um, uh, the fact that the United States, but also a country, has moved towards regulating the market or legalizing, if you want, but regulating is a better word because it means that they take back control over production and distribution and consumption instead of leaving it in the hands of uh, of
The drug
of an
cartels.
illegal circuit, right?
Mhm.
Or criminals, yeah. So has convinced other governments to also consider that there should be ways which, in their national context or in their situation, would be helpful to address the problems that their society is faced with. And in some cases, I mean, cannabis is in some countries it's considered a tremendous crime to use it. In most countries, it is a socially accepted habit or custom that. But it's still used in some cases to prosecute or to detain people or arrest people or throw them into jail. So there's different opinions. There's many governments who are thinking about taking steps in that same direction. As you know, Jamaica has just approved or is in the process of approving a first step towards decriminalization of possession for personal use. There are other countries that have taken steps in that direction, which is of course not the same thing as legalizing, but it's a step in that direction, let's say. So by seeing that the United States, the federal government, has not been um, responding with repression towards the states that have regulated their cannabis. Many countries in the region, so in the Caribbean, but also outside of the Caribbean and in South America, in particular in Central America, consider that they have more space and more space for maneuver to design their own drug laws. Because, as you know, most of the drug policies that have been in place for the past decades have been dictated by Washington to most of the countries. Now that there's some more room and some more flexibility in countries doing things differently and according to their national situation, their national circumstances, this is something that is, yeah, sparking more attention, and more governments are considering taking such steps.
So earlier I was talking to you about drug treatment courts, and you were telling me your opinion, but I wasn't sure. Are your opinion on drug treatment courts is positive or negative or is mixed? Where do you see drug treatment courts taking the
Well,
country?
I understand that there's many different forms of drug courts. I'm not a specialist, so I don't know much about all the different forms and shapes that drug courts have. But what I have learned from the experience of the United States, and I think the United States is the model actually now for most of the drug courts that are being in the process of implementing in the Caribbean and in South America. I think there's about 13 countries now that are in the process of doing drug courts or experimental phases, or they are already implementing drug courts. The criticism I've heard from people who have been following it is that in the first place um, it's not a real solution, or let's say it criminalizes the criminalization of the people, because it is presented as if drug courts substitute prisons, treatment for give people treatment instead of prison, right? So it would be an answer to the overpopulation of the prisons, because many people who are in prison are there for drug offenses, and many people who are in there for drug offenses are drug users. So the idea behind it is to get people out of prison and give them treatment, which is of course a good idea. In the case that people really need that care, because I think, and that's what my colleagues in the United States also confirmed, is that you can't force people to go into treatment, and if you give treatment as an alternative to prison, of course everybody will, and that's the only option that you have if you're in the criminal justice system. It's not a real choice, because you would of course opt for treatment, but in many cases people who are consumers of drugs don't need treatment. Not everybody needs treatment. There's lots of people who consume in an unproblematic way drugs. It is assumed, this whole model is based on the assumption that drug use automatically leads to addiction, which in most cases is not happening. Most cannabis users are not addicted to it. So what happens is that you would replace prison for treatment, which does not in all cases would be justifiable, because not everybody needs treatment, and you would still maintain the threat of a criminal record and a criminal prosecution for the simple fact that somebody is a cannabis user, which of course is not right. I mean, it's is a waste of time and money, because most people who use cannabis do not have problems with it. The problem is that it's illegal, and the problem is that it's considered an offense to consume it and to grow it and to market it. So what I understand of the drug courts is that they insert more people into this criminal justice system instead of reducing it, which would be a better aim, I think. And it also makes treatment into an obligation instead of a right, which is what I think it should be for everyone who needs medical help or medical attention for a medical problem, which the case of addiction is. So that's I think these two things are the main criticisms that I've heard about drug courts in the United States. And of course the basic idea to give people treatment who need treatment is very good, and that's very positive, and it's absurd to incarcerate people for the simple fact that they possess a small amount of drugs for their personal use. So but these two but that fact does not mean that somebody needs treatment. And if you force somebody to undergo treatment who is a simple user without serious health problems, I think that's quite problematic, and it violates somebody's right to access to healthcare, because it can't be an obligation. It's a right that people have. And bringing more people in the criminal justice system under the name of treatment sounds to me like a contradiction. So that's why that's what I can say about drug courts. I mean, I don't know the exact shape and form it is taking in Barbados or in other countries in the region, but this is what I heard about the experience in the United States.